Hey guys, this is Tommy from the Ravens Creek Study, and we're continuing in Eschatology 101, looking at the end times. We're kind of at the middle of the week, looking at the various things that are declared as specifically in Daniel 9:27 there that are supposed to happen at that middle point. So we're now in the last little thing, the Abomination of Desolation. Which comes out of Daniel 11 because that phrase in Daniel 9:27 it's kind of a weird Hebrew. Some would translate it at the desolation that causes abomination, or the abomination that causes desolation. There's on the wings of desolation. There's an abomination. Uh, it's kind of a weird phrase, but what we're most familiar with is actually Jesus' words in Matthew 24:15, where he says, "Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains." Um, now, I guess maybe I can say the "let the reader understand." A lot of people aren't sure if this is like an insert by Matthew or if this is an insert by Jesus. Personally, I think it's an insert by Jesus because it explains what he is about to talk about, and in fact, what he's already been talking about. He gives you the text to go back to understand what he's saying. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, these words of Jesus are incredibly important to understanding what this is. Notice that Jesus references Daniel and says that Daniel spoke of this. I mean, that seems kind of obvious, but you go back to Daniel 9:26, it doesn't say that exact phrase. Daniel 8:11 also doesn't say this, except it does say that the sanctuary will be made low. It's in Daniel 11:31 specifically that exact phrase would be used. That's the reference that Jesus is most likely making, which is important because of the context. When you go back to Daniel 11, you have the story of various rulers and the way that history shall unfold, which it does. You can actually see it. It all lines up if you go back to the kings of that time of Greece and Egypt and the other various areas that are involved. When you get to verse 21, the focus shifts a little bit. There's this vile person, or this vile prince, which the antecedent traces from the end of the chapter back to here. So whichever one is being spoken of in verses 36 through 45, the one who exalts himself and magnifies himself above God, the one who speaks blasphemies against God and the God of gods, all of these things that are being said of this one who everybody says, oh yeah, that's definitely the Antichrist. You have to trace the same subject. It goes all the way back to verse 21. That's where it starts. So this vile prince that rises in verse 21 is the same one who shall camp himself against the holy place. So it's from the context of Daniel 11 that we can assume quite easily what this abomination of desolation is. Now Luke 21:20 puts it that it is the surrounding armies against Jerusalem. And you can see that in Daniel 11:30 and 31. There is the sanctuary being cut off. It is the placing of it's the placing there of the abomination of desolation, a statement of ego and being wise in your own conceit. So the there that Jesus is speaking of and that Daniel is speaking of, it's in Jerusalem. It's at the sanctuary. There's a specific place. It is the establishment of a God that his fathers did not know, and forcing many to worship that God. And we find that in Daniel 11:39. We can see in Revelation 13. Well, before I go there, let's continue with this statement of the abomination in Daniel 11. You have in Daniel 11, it's a very necessary thing to understand. When you go to Daniel 11:30 through 32, what's happening is the man is coming down into the Holy Land, where he is then enraged against the Holy Covenant. We've talked about this in previous videos. He's enraged against the Holy Covenant, and in that, he then comes down, he establishes the abomination of desolation, he cuts off the sanctuary, making it low, as it says in Daniel 11, or Daniel 8, and we have there the statement of what's happening in Matthew 24 as well as Luke 21. when we put all the pieces together, there's only one event that seems to really satisfy that, and it's not an event in history. The commentators that try to say that it was Antiochus Epiphanes in Daniel 11, it doesn't fit. When the commentators of Matthew 24 and the parallel passages of Mark 13 and Luke 21, they try to say, oh, that's Titus with Rome, it also doesn't fit. So you have Jesus saying that it's a future of his time, so that obviously makes Daniel 11 not anything before his time, such as Antiochus. But then Titus, he was not killed by by something not of human hands. There was not a divine sort of retribution that came upon Titus. He died of natural death. And you have the same way with Rome. Rome was not defeated with the destruction of this Antichrist figure and the establishment of the kingdom of God. That's not the way it happens. That's what Daniel 2 says was going to happen. It's what Daniel 7 said what was going to happen. It's what Daniel 8 said was going to happen. None of that was fulfilled with the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70. None of that was fulfilled with the death of Titus. None of that was fulfilled with the establishment of the kingdom of God with Jesus. So there's something that we're still looking for, because none of these things are satisfied. If we take them seriously, the wording is quite explicit here. None of these things are actually satisfied. So we have to ask the question of what is it that could then take place. When you jump to Revelation 13, a little bit more details given. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast, who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So we have this image that is erected, that it's essentially given life, right? It's given breath, so to speak, that the image of the beast should speak and cause as many who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. So when you read the book of Revelation, there's another time where people won't give up their idols, who they don't walk, they don't act, they don't do all these things, but the thing that's not mentioned is that they don't speak. So this is nothing short of a miracle. This is a miracle by all definition, but it's a false one, right? It's the false signs that we were warned of in 1 Thessalonians and 2 Thessalonians. In Psalm 74, 7 and 8, they have set fire to your sanctuary. They have defiled the dwelling place of your name to the ground. They said in their hearts, let us destroy them altogether. They have burned up all the meeting places of God in the land. Again, it repeats that kind of statement that we expect from Luke 21 and from Daniel 30 through 32. Jeremiah 7:30. They have set abominations in the house which is called by my name to pollute it. Now this is specifically dealing with Israel at that time in Jeremiah's day and age. But you can see the pattern here. Just as it happened in Jeremiah's age, and just as it happened before him and after him, so it will happen again. This is something that is a continual progression. It happens again and again. Jeremiah 51:51. We are ashamed because we have heard reproach. Shame has covered our faces. For strangers have come into the sanctuaries of the Lord's house. Did that happen with Jeremiah's day and age? It might have. I don't know. I don't think so. I haven't heard so. But this is, again, just one of those times where even if it did happen, it's not this passage. When you read all of Jeremiah 51, the things that are being said of Babylon have not really actually come to pass. When you read Ezekiel chapter 8, you find that, I guess I can read just verse 3 here. The Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven and brought me in visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the north gate of the inner court, where the seat of the image of jealousy was, which provokes to jealousy. Now again, the context of Ezekiel 8 is that these are the things that are happening in Ezekiel's day and age, but this is a vision. This is not literally Ezekiel physically being in Jerusalem and thumbing himself through the wall and seeing all of the idolatry that the priests are doing in their inner places. This is a vision that Ezekiel is having, and it continues right into Ezekiel chapter 9, which is the sealing of God upon the faithful, and those who are unfaithful being slaughtered. You have that as a parallel with Revelation 7 with the seal of the 144,000. So we have very good reason to believe that this is not simply satisfied with Ezekiel's day and age and the destruction of Jerusalem by Babylon, nor with Titus's day and age. There's something beyond this that goes to the very end of the age, this abomination of desolation. These are the various verses that seem to speak about it. There's not a whole lot to go off of to ask the question of, well, what is it, where, how, when, etc. But these are the verses. I'll let you kind of thumb through them and come to conclusions for yourself. So, until next time, grace and peace to you in Christ.